Hey everyone, you know, I'm doing this video because I'm currently watching, or I'm trying to watch, Talk Wrestling 109 with Jeff Meacham, or No DQ Wrestling. And I listened to some of the questions that a lot of people were asking him, and some of them that stuck out in my mind, I kind of want to reply to myself. One of the first ones I want to talk about is the whole TNA Hulk Hogan deal, whether it's a flop or not. Well, to answer that question to the person that asked Jeff the question in the first place, do I think it's a flop myself? No. I wouldn't call it a flop. I call it more like a work in progress, you know. I mean, you can't just ask for perfection and success overnight. I mean, I do admit and I do agree that them going to the 8 o'clock hour is a good move, even if it's for one time, but it should be more on a permanent basis. Because that way they can go unopposed, for that 1 hour, and anybody that tunes into it can be like, ooh, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that. But if I was, someone in charge of production and all that, and like scheduling, like Meacham said himself, I would personally go to Dixie Carter and Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and Russo and Ferrara, whoever was in charge of the scheduling, and I would say the Monday night deals, the Monday night Impact is a good idea, but let's move it 2 hours earlier. That's what I would do, because if you think about it, if you would move 2 hours earlier, you'd have 2 hours to yourself, and you would be unopposed for those 2 hours, basically being 7 to 9. And that way, people can switch over to WWE. That way, and then slowly by doing that, because I think WCW did that for a while. They went unopposed for 2 hours before WWE. I don't know how they did it here on the West Coast. I think what it was is they came on at like 2 hours before WWE here on the West Coast, and WWE came on afterwards. But basically, I would do that because, kind of work your way up to opposing the WWE, opposing the competition. That's what I would do if I was TNA. I would do the 2 hours earlier, and then if that's proven to be a success and everything, then slowly make the transition back to opposing WWE at 9 to 10. That's what I would do if I was TNA. And like I said, the whole thing with Hogan and Bischoff is it's a work in progress. And like I mentioned, you can't ask for perfection overnight or success overnight. You just can't do that. Another question that stuck out in my mind is who does he think was the most influential stable in wrestling, and what does he think is the most worst stable in wrestling? And I have to agree on him that the Four Horsemen was probably the most influential, because as they said on the DVD, which I have, if it wasn't for the Horsemen, there'd be no NWO, there'd be no DX. Hell, there wouldn't be no Main Event Mafia. There wouldn't have been no New Blood. There wouldn't have been no Corporation. And the list could go on. There wouldn't be no Alliance. But there wouldn't be no Evolution. But then again, you're looking like at a group of four or five people. And that was what the Horsemen were, basically 4 to 5 people. And if you were to look at a stable like that, then yeah, if it wasn't for the Horsemen, there wouldn't be groups like, say, DX and the Main Event Mafia. Groups like that. There wouldn't be them. There wouldn't be the Filthy Animals. But as far as huge groups go, as far as major stables go, major league big time stables, like groups of people, I think obviously you got to go with the NWO. You got to go with the NWO as the most influential when it comes to big group stables. Because hell, they nearly took the entire WCW roster and converted them into NWO members. I mean, go figure. I mean, they even went as far as New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they took the Great Muta, Masato Chono, Tenji, and Guido, or whatever his other name is, and they turned them into NWO members in Japan. in Japan. Masachono, Great Muta here in the States, but in Japan they took Tenzin and some other guy, and they turned them into NWO members, and they had an expansion group there. So as far as big time groups go, so as far as regular stables go, like DX and Main Event Mafia, you gotta go with the Four Horsemen as the most influential for them. But if you're talking big time groups, I mean huge groups, massive people, you gotta go with the NWO, because if it wasn't for the NWO, there'd be no Alliance, there would be no New Blood, there would be no Millionaires Club. Hell, there wouldn't be no TNA Originals, if you will. But that's probably, but then again, you put the TNA Originals probably in the category of being influenced by the Four Horsemen. As far as worst stables go, in my opinion, I do agree the LWO, the Latino World Order, was probably not the best thing to go with. Another stable, which obviously did not really get off the ground, but another stable that didn't get off the ground, I'd have to say, is the OWN, the One Warrior Nation. That didn't do well. What else? Oh, the Revolution. The Revolution. There you go. The Revolution. That was sort of a borderline group. It's like, that was basically, it didn't even last long. I mean, they made their debut and everything, but they didn't last long as a group until they finally reformed as a heel group, with the exception of Benoit. And it's because Benoit was getting the push that they weren't getting. And then what happened with that group? That group basically reformed almost overnight in WWF when they arrived there as the Radicals. So that, to me, was sort of one of those groups that, like the LWO, shouldn't have really have been put together, but was put together anyway. I guess to push the underrated talent basically to push who were considered the underrated undermined talent at that time. The guys that couldn't get a break despite they were probably the best in the business. So, anyway, like I said, the Revolution kind of rides on that a little bit. What else? I can't think of anything. Oh, the Alliance. The Alliance. Like I said, this is probably this falls under the category of being influenced by the NWO, but it's really a group that shouldn't have been put together in the first place. I mean, WWE basically had to take some of their wrestlers and put them in the Alliance just to get the Alliance over. And that shouldn't have happened. They should have worked it out in a way that was going to make it better. They shouldn't have gone in that direction. And I think what really killed this Alliance stable, and made it probably one of the worst stables in history, was the fact that they had the WCW matches even before the whole thing started with them being heels. So even though they were influenced by a group like the NWO, they do fall under the other category of being one of the worst stables put together. And currently, probably the worst stable together is Le Cool. Yeah, Layla and Michelle McCool, along with Vicky Guerrero and Maurice and Alicia Fox, if you want to consider them a stable or an alliance-like stable, who are going under the name of Simply Flawless, which in my opinion is just a WWE ripoff of TNA's Beautiful People, toned down WWE style. I mean, basically, this whole group of girls, including Vicky, are trying to dominate, and I guess it's WWE's way of saying, I think it's WWE's way of telling TNA, hey, look, we're pushing our divas, we're pushing them into the limelight, we're giving them that spotlight. But I think WWE needs to realize something. And what WWE needs to realize is that this is basically a group of girls that are acting like they're better than everyone else. It's just like the Beautiful People. Beautiful People act like they're better than everyone else. And I'll get back to talking about that in a minute.